Hello, everybody. My name is Brandon Dombrowski, and welcome to the introduction to the product owner role at North Seattle College's Application Development Department, specifically the practicum courses. The primary responsibilities of a product owner are to represent the client interests and needs to the team. This will also include client interaction, future sprint development, managing of the backlog, co-leading stand-ups and the scrum, approving and moving through pull requests, and general development with the team. In terms of advocating with the client will have very specific ideas on the project and what the tech should do. The product owner is essentially going to use the time that they have for the meetings, through Slack, through emails, to interpret the client's wishes into tech terms and bring it to the team. Now, that sounds a little bit meaty, and it is, but what that means is that a lot of times that the client is going to say, hey, I want the website to do this. And then you're going to have to interpret that like from their desired terms and their business terms, perhaps, into what the devs are going to understand for how to make that a reality. Sometimes the client is going to wish for things that you can't do. Sometimes they're going to already know very well what they want. And sometimes it's going to be a lot of discovery on the product owner's part to find out what their needs are. One of the great things, and I think on the funner side of being a product owner, is you get to advocate for the client during the sprint planning. And so basically, in terms of like how we have things set up for right now, is that the project manager is going to work to create like an outline or a backbone of what a sprint's going to look like, and the product owner is going to consult on that. Sometimes the project manager is not going to have like a very structured idea of what that's going to look like exactly, and they may consult with you earlier on in the process, but the product owner is going to essentially help influence what the sprint will look like and what the issues will be. And that's going to be really in terms of how I say we as the student body and the student group are fulfilling our agreement, and that kind of is we as the student body and the college for the client. The project manager, though, is the gatekeeper. So you're going to want to have a great relationship with them, but they're going to be working with the lead developer and the professor to kind of determine what changes or additions can be made and or are possible. In some cases, a project's going to be determined well in advance. And in that case, maybe little change is possible, if at all. But if a project is being kind of built, like, for example, in a summer session, like the students prior to the start of fall quarter of 2023 did, is we kind of had to build as we went along, kind of seeing how things would go. And so we didn't have a full project plan set out in advance. For the beginning of fall quarter, we might have that. So the idea is that sometimes changes can be made, sometimes they can't, but the bigger idea for the product owner is that you're going to want to make sure that you are the ear to the client and the mouth to the student who are working on the project. And just practicing that work right now in this particular environment is going to be helpful for you in the future. The project manager's job is to control creep. That is not your job. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, Nicole always stressed this in the project management class, is that creep is the thing where, developers or product owners or, even leads on a project might start to enhance a project or include additional features that weren't in the original project plan. And that might throw things into chaos, and certain other more prioritized things won't get done because of the creep. So the product owner is there to kind of dream with the client and reach for the stars. The project manager's job will be to control that. In terms of conflict of interest, It is ideal in most cases for the product owner not to be a developer on a project that they are being a product owner for. So in the case of fall quarter of 2023, we have Belinda's Closet as a client and North Seattle Events as another client. It would be ideal for the product owner of Belinda's to only do product ownership for Belinda's and only do dev work for North Seattle Events. Because of the dynamics of a student situation and an academic setting, we might not always be able to adhere for that. But when you're talking about this in context of future interviews and for jobs and internships, just beware that in a professional environment, there are some houses that might say a product owner should never do dev on a product that or on a project that they are developing for. And other houses, you might have to do a little bit of both. Just keep in mind that the project managers on these projects in an academic setting, and for myself and future technical project managers who kind of serve as a lead on the project, we're going to want to make sure, enforce that the project or the product owner is advocating for the client. Even if we can't give them exactly what we want, in the interest of academia and your learning, that's what we want. And that's kind of how we hope that you frame that in job interviews. Another exciting thing for the product owner is to help manage the backlog. And this really is more of a prioritization. So the product owner and the project manager might bite off more than they can chew and assign too much to an issue, or there might be a hiccup that comes up that prevents a developer from completing an issue on time. Those things are going to fill into the backlog. It's really important for the product owner to make sure that the backlog is being prioritized in a way that ensures the client's interests are being met in terms of delivering on what we hope to deliver on, which is maybe MVP 1 or MVP 2, depending on where you come in on the project. Client interaction. So there's going to be an initial client interaction, and that depends on where you're coming in. Again, if you are coming in as a product owner on a project already in progress, the outgoing product owner will introduce you via email and set you up. If you are having if you are a product owner on a brand new client, you're going to set up the introduction yourself. If you are coming into a project, you're going to follow up on any outstanding issues in terms of development or deadlines. If you are coming in on a new client, onboarding a new client, you're going to want to follow up on any outstanding issues in terms of contract and agreement stuff and any of that any of those exciting things. In that initial interaction, in whichever way that is set up for you, you're going to just want to set out an expectation for contact. Basically, don't let too much time go between contacts. If we're in a heavy development period, you're going to definitely want to be talking to your client at least once a week, if not more, depending on what's going on. Probably once a week is the safe bet so that you have enough to report, but not more than 2 weeks. But in general, if you're working on this project during, say, a summer session, like we did as we started this prior to fall of 2023, you're going to want to make sure that you're in touch with your client at least every 2 weeks, even if it's just to say, hey, it's me. I just wanted to let you know that your project is moving forward, even if we don't have anything new to demonstrate to you. But you're going to want to set that up in your initial interactions. And then just as it makes sense and as is needed, you're going to want to provide demos to your clients of updates. I just received a GitHub notice from one of my developers on this summer preparation quarter, and I got to see a really outstanding example of the web UI. That would be something that I might like to take a screenshot recording of as a product owner and sent to the client if I was the product owner on that particular client's project. Sprint development. So as I mentioned prior, it's extremely important to establish a positive working relationship with your project manager. They're not your manager. They're not your boss. In this setting, BC is your boss as the professor of the quarter. But in an employment setting, the project manager is still not your boss. It's probably going to be your lead developer. So what you're going to want to do, or actually, let me back that up. It might be your lead developer, but it might also be, like I said, in some houses where which side you work on as a product owner is very specific. It might be your marketing manager for your company. So, but we'll get into that in probably the second video a little bit more. But you want to have, like I said, a positive working relationship with your project manager. You want to try to let them as best as possible set up the rough drafts of what the sprint would look like and what the issues would look like as they are able to. But sometimes project managers are more interested in project management than development. So you're going to want to also consult with them and kind of help them, you know, maybe on a pair programming level, kind of work through some of those issues so that they, you know, represent what the client wants and what the students need to do. You're going to want to help to keep the issues small and manageable to make sure that, you know, one person isn't biting off way more than they can chew. You're going to want to include the lead developer in the planning process to gain any of their support and approval on all sprints before the team begins working on them. And that will kind of be worked on via the project manager. So once, you know, both of you kind of determine what that sprint's going to look like, then you'll submit it to, you know, the lead developer and, you know, seek their approval. That will be determined once again by, you know, whether or not your project plan is developed and planned out through the entire quarter, or if it's something, you know, you're bringing on a new client and it's something that's kind of, you know, built up week by week initially at least. Ideally, you're going to want to have more of a long-term plan, but, you know, the difference is going to still be between, you know, whether the client is already onboarded and set up and how far in advance those sprints are already set up and what you need to do if you're maybe onboarding somebody new and what that process looks like. So as always in development, it's a process and it's an evolution. So we are told to be ready for and embrace that. So that's, some things can be set in stone, but some things have to be a little bit more malleable. The product owner is also going to help co-lead the stand-ups, the weekly that we have, and the scrum. Right now, the stand-ups are being done as a group on a weekly basis, but as the quarter starts, those stand-ups are going to be weekly and via Canvas, the stand-up / scrum. So they're going to be written, there's going to be links, and there's going to be information about that in the syllabus. However, there's going to be a portion of the class time meetings where we will end up talking about, you know, past, present, future business, you know, kind of in a group setting for all of us that will probably be held at some point during the class, probably earlier on, you know, as a check-in. You're going to want to co-lead the product owner portion of that as it's necessary for your client and for your project. You're going to want to update the team with any updates that the client might have in terms of any requests or any things that we might be able to expand upon, or any features that they might want to add that they didn't already think about. You'll bring those to the group on an advisory level. You don't promise to them that you can add anything, even if we're well ahead of schedule. That's something that will have to be determined by folks higher up on the ladder than either of us. But the idea would be that you still want to have the conversation with the client because there's future quarters that they're still working with us, and we can hear about their current needs through discovery now and build those in to the future quarters. So that's why it's still important. Pull request reviews. This is another big thing that's important. You're going to want to, as a product owner, just keep an eye on the pull requests related to your client. That's not to say that you can't do pull requests for the other client. You can, and you should. If you have time for it, you should. You definitely should. But you want to, when there's a backlog or there's I don't know, say there's a problem, there's a developer that's out or multiple people are on vacation, etc. Your first focus is just going to be, this is my client, I want to move their things forward. This is what I'm going to work on. When I have backup time, I'm going to work on the others. And that's, I mean, most pull requests are pretty, simple to look at, but like on the ones that need research to say, hey, I had to look into this and this was, my pushback on this particular thing. Those are the particular ones that you might just, like if it's another client that's not yours, you just might put on the back burner. And that is actually everything that we have for the introduction to the product owner role. In future videos, we'll talk more in depth about some of these topics and some of the more things that you have to think about as a product owner. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next ones.